Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Carol Trang, Community Manager here at Unity Technologies, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar on mobile game immersion, how to keep your player engaged, featuring Half-Brick Studios. We'll be discussing a topic that we're all very passionate about, keeping your players in the game and selecting the right operational tools to make that happen. So why is this so important? The pandemic and subsequent lockdown fueled an increased interest in gaming to the tune of 2.6 billion mobile players, driving revenue to about $90.7 billion and accounting for 66% of the App Store's revenue share. In fact, a new report by market research firm IDC just announced that 75% of pandemic-related mobile gaming activity might be here to stay. So to sustain this monumental growth, studios need to arm developers with the right set of tools to prevent interruptions in gameplay, which could lead to player churn. At Unity, we provide an ecosystem of solutions that enable developers to easily create and operate their games. Together with our verified solutions partners like Backtrace, leading error crash and management solutions, and HelpShift, the only mobile-first customer support platform, we support developers' operations through performance monitoring and customer engagement. This ensures that high-impact errors are prioritized. So first, I'd like to introduce Eric Ashby, Director of Product at HelpShift. Welcome, Eric.
Oh, thanks, Carol, for that. So yeah, I'm head of product at HelpShift, and when I think about HelpShift in this scenario, especially what we've seen over this past year, is HelpShift is really at the right place because it allows you to give your customers the in-app customer support. They don't have to leave to go out of the game. Now we support over 2.5 billion devices that are running on HelpShift today. And in fact, I'm just going to show you the experience real quick. Carol, if you allow me to share my screen.
Yep.
So I'll just hit share. And this is now the Fruit Ninja experience that we have here. And you can see right within the Fruit Ninja here, if I click on the little settings here, there's help and support. And what's great about that is, as a player, if I have a problem, I can just go just that one click, and it takes me right into the experience. There's a self-help here. I can click on that. I can find out, maybe I want to know about the daily login bonus, and you can see it's right there. And I can say whether or not that's helpful or not. But what's really nice is that I can use the contact us, and that will just start up a messaging conversation. And I can actually right here start a conversation with the Half-Brick brand, and then they'll have agents that will respond, and it's completely asynchronous messaging. So as a player, I don't have to stay here. I can leave and get back to playing, which is of course what the goal is: solve the problem, get the player back in playing. So thank you for letting me just show that experience real quick. So it's interesting. We did a survey. We take a look at all of the different issues that have been coming in through players out there, and the largest thing that we saw was around the gameplay issues, whether it was the freezing, or it was breaking, or there's a bug or crashes or things like that. And so when you think about how can you make the experience better, it's really about focusing on kind of these big areas, and that's where, of course, Backtrace becomes really interesting. And so I think we'll talk about what can we do with the gameplay issues.
Thank you. So next is Jason Davis, VP of Product Management at Backtrace. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Carol. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So at Backtrace, we provide tools to help game developers create a great game experience. Our flagship product today focuses on helping game developers detect and resolve the fatal crashes and non-fatal bugs, errors, or issues that cause problems for your players. We're really proud to be a VSP partner with Unity, and prouder still of all the game studios that have started working with us over the last few years, as we've really been building our solution for gaming. Over the last year in particular, we've added a number of rich capabilities to our mobile crash reporting stack to support the needs of customers like Half-Brick, who we're going to hear from soon. Half-Brick makes use of Backtrace for their mobile games, both for things like playtesting, as well as for their released games. Once they've left the developer's desktop and they're in the hands of players, the developers need to get a sense of what the players are feeling and what they're seeing as they're playing their game. Backtrace helps support that. Not only for production or for released games, but Backtrace is also used throughout the CI/CD pipeline, throughout the build process, allowing game developers to collect issues in their build pipeline, performance issues that they might detect when they're running tests early in their cycles, things of that nature, so that we're helping folks capture those errors, not only that their players feel, but also those errors that they're seeing as they're building their game. And finally, what you'll see is Halfbrick shows a little of how they make use of the solution is a really powerful query engine. Everything within Backtrace is indexable, so folks are able to discover errors or fatal crashes for particular users, device types, configurations, and see what types of trends or standard configurations that might be causing issues. So I'm really excited to be here and spend some time sharing with you some more about what studios are doing with solutions like Backtrace, HelpShift, and mobile gaming. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. And to drive home the importance of keeping players in the game in today's hyper-competitive gaming space, we'll be talking about specific use cases with Halfbrick Studios, whom you might know from Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride. They've specifically leveraged Backtrace and HelpShift to deliver higher quality games faster and to keep their players engaged. So I'm super happy to welcome Madison Annabelle, Halfbrick Customer Support Lead. Say hi, Madison.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for having me. So I work for Halfbrick Studios, and we were founded in 2001 in Brisbane, Australia. As you heard previously, we created Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride, as well as Dan the Man, Shadows Remain, Monster Dash, Fruit Ninja VR, and a ton more. Overall, we have about 86 employees across the globe, which I think is really cool, especially in this day and age. And we have over 1 billion game downloads across our games so far, and counting. So I started off in game testing back in the day and moved up to customer support manager. Thankfully, those kind of go hand in hand, as you're always hands-on with the game and trying to help users. We currently have a team of 3 in customer support, with some of the other game devs jumping on as they get the chance. And we have, on average, about 17 million monthly active users coming to HelpShift for support. And that includes the Android, Apple, VR, and a couple of other platforms that we support every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Jade Anderson, QA Officer on Fruit Ninja 2. Glad you're here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Jade Anderson. I'm obviously from Halfbrick Studios. I am the QA officer on Fruit Ninja 2 at the moment. And my role is to not only test the game and make sure that it goes out in a quality state, but also to be a bit of a halfway person between customer support and our devs, so that we can capture any bugs that pop up during the QA process, but also once it's out in the hands of our players, and make sure that we get that fixed and get a new build out as soon as possible so our players can keep playing the game. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. All right, so let's get started. First question. I'd love to hear about what your process was like before you adopted support, bug management tools, everything. How did you work together? Madison, why don't you kick that conversation off?
So that used to be a lot of manual work. In general, a user will send us a message. So we get a message from the player, we'll go over all the information they've sent us, and then usually the first step is to suggest some troubleshooting steps or request extra information. And then we'll try to reproduce that on our end so we can send it off to the team to investigate. Typically, if the troubleshooting steps don't work, we know we have a bit more of a bigger issue than just something like needing to restart the game. HelpShift is really useful in that it automatically gathers things like device information, game version, and the user IDs, so we're able to search that stuff without having to manually ask the user for it each time. If a bug is related to a potential device issue, we can cross-check that device with other HelpShift tickets by using filters and smart views, when we previously just have to collate all that information separately and hope we were able to find a match there. So we used to manually reproduce all of the major bugs and get the logs ourselves. That was really time consuming. The QA team would sometimes spend half their day replaying the same 15 seconds of the game, just trying to get that crash to happen so we could pull the logs. But now that Backtrace is in, it's saving us a ton of time from both the QA side and customer service side, as it automatically picks up those issues and then just includes them in the ticket. There's no extra work for us. When it comes to prioritizing the bugs, the teams usually self-assign these to the best person suited to fix it. That might be the artist or a programmer or someone else who knows exactly what they need to do there. We'll usually keep notes about trends in the bugs that we see. That way we can prioritize faster growing issues or ones that seem to be affecting more players than others. And we'll let the team know as we see those increasing. Game-breaking bugs and ones that affect a lot of users typically get top priority. Anything else is up to the team to fit into their regular updates. We release about every 2 weeks, so bugs are fixed pretty frequently, which is really nice. Once we know a bug has been fixed, we can use the help shift filter to show all the players on the older version, and then we can ask them to update their game in one single bulk message that we can send out to thousands of users. It's really convenient, and yeah, we've seen a big just kind of increase in productivity since we've switched over. Thanks.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how does it look now? Jade, do you want to tell us?
So the example that I wanted to run through with you today is one where our player has contacted us after experiencing a crash in the game, and they've experienced a crash in probably the worst place ever. So they've just gotten a high score, which is an important aha moment for one of our players in the game. And not only has that happened, but this is also when we're trying to monetize as well. So everybody loses out in this situation when the game crashes at this particular point. So what we need to do is we need to figure out what has happened and how to communicate that to the coders. So after a little bit of troubleshooting with the customer support team, we have received the ticket and we can see that this person has all the information, like what device they're on, what OS they're also experiencing this crash on, which is really handy. And this has all come through from the game, which is extremely handy. The customer hasn't had to leave the game at all. They just go to the settings menu and log this ticket. So once we've received this, all I would usually do is get this user ID here. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to go into Backtrace and search for this particular user ID and see if they've had any additional issues with their account. And so because they've had a few issues here, I'm just going to check what date and time they've experienced the issue. So we can see it's been around June the 6th. So I can just go back into Backtrace and check the activity panel and look for issues around that time. And the really handy thing about Backtrace here is that I can already see that our coders have identified this issue, and they've read all their coder talk here. I'm not very good at that. I'm not a technical person, but they've identified quite a few issues. They've merged them all into one ticket in Jira, and they've resolved it for us. So all I would need to do is go back to Madison and the customer support team, let them know that the bug has been fixed and that it will be out in an additional update. So as long as the player updates in the next version, their bugs should be fixed.
Nice. So one of the things I see is that you're spending more time on fixing issues rather than identifying the causes, which means faster fixes, right? So the worst thing that can happen is for a player to abandon the game. It's so hard to win their trust back. Eric, Jason, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I loved this scenario here because it basically allowed Jade to go through this and talk both the customer speak, able to give that response back to the customer, but also the engineering speak, be able to be like, look, here's where the problem was, here's what the stack trace looks like, and be able to kind of connect those dots to really basically have a unified experience here.
Yeah, and this example is something common that we've seen with other customers as well, where the identification of a bug impacting one user, understanding the blast radius to see how many other users have been impacted, then allowing engineering to take that prioritization and drive their fix is really where we shine. And this was a great example of how that surfaces itself in a real world use case.
So let's jump over to our next example, if you want to show it, Jade.
Yeah, sure. So the second example that I have here is a little bit different because the the player has contacted us through email, which on our side is actually not much different. We still get the conversation backwards and forwards with this player. They've also attached a screen capture of the crash, which is really handy. I think we've got a bit of an experienced user here because we've got an attachment of the crash, a bit of a fun Fruit Ninja story. He's also saying hello to a few staff members in there, so I think he's experienced some crashes before. And he's been able to communicate with Sam, one of our customer support officers, and get some more information on their particular account, what has happened, provide some troubleshooting steps. And now we're at the point where the ticket has come along to myself. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy that user ID and then pop back into Backtrace as I did before and just see if I can pinpoint that exact issue that the user was having with their crash. So makes it super easy for a non-technical person like me with filters. I can just pop everything in. I don't have to write any fancy code. And I can see here that the person has had the issue around June the 9th. So we're just going to do the same thing as before in the activity panel. And I can see a bunch of issues here. And we can see that there's already been a ticket logged for one of the crashes, but one of them hasn't been logged. So if I need to do this, all I need to do is click on this little plus sign here and create a ticket, which logs all of the information that the coders need straight into Jira. It goes into our backlog and they can grab it, fix it, and we ship it in the next update. So this really helps bridges the gap between the player and our coders. So as Eric was saying before, I don't need to learn how to write C++. I can just use Backtrace and help shift altogether to get the information to our coders to fix the bug.
Awesome. Another great example of getting to the solution quickly. Eric, Jason, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, another really common example. One of the things we often hear, coders and developers, they work in tools like Jira or GitHub Issues or any other number of tools that they use for managing their day-to-day tasks and work. Prior to solutions like this, there was a lot of copy and pasting, a lot of going back to the player or back to the tester and trying to replicate, as was alluded to before. And this push button type of integration to make sure that the developers get the details they need in the places where they work is really another reason that a lot of folks make use of these types of solutions.
Yeah, I found it interesting that this was an email, that they had contacted over email, and they were still able to connect all the dots between there. Definitely, there was more work for the player to have to do that, but being able to be on those different channels is important. When they're in the app, of course, that's going to be the easiest because you have the identity, you have all of that. But even if they come in through another channel, you still have the ability to close the loop there. So I just thought that was really interesting in this scenario.
Nice, thanks. So let's go back to Halfbrick. What would you say is the biggest improvement and benefits you've seen as a result of using these three particular tools together? Madison, do you want to give us a little look on that?
I'm happy to take over this one. So we've seen some really good results. Our Fruit Ninja 1 response rate went up to 7.04%. Our Fruit Ninja 2 response rate went up to 14.42%. And our time to first response for each game is now 0 seconds. So we've done that by putting in bots and automations. So as soon as a message gets sent in, we'll automatically have something start talking to the player. So they know that their ticket is, important and we're taking the time to talk to them. And finally, our average time to resolve has been halved from approximately 14 days down to 7, which is a big deal for us having such a small team with such a big user base.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. More studios need to implement this. Eric, Jason, how might someone start this process? What's their first step if they're interested?
Yeah, so it's really interesting when you look at this. When we started this conversation, I'll start it off with the the data right at the very beginning. That was actually the classification of what are the issues that you're having. It's actually a service we provide called Smart Intents, where we can actually go and take a look at your historical data and help you understand what's the volume coming in, and then you can be like, okay, then how are we going to target that? And that gives you a focus of what you're going to do. And then, of course, you implement the SDK, have the help shift there, and then plus with Backtrace, so you can start addressing these. But kind of the very first thing we could do is we could actually come in and help you analyze so that you know what are the issues that you're seeing in the system, so that we could start targeting those. And that's a great way to get started.
In terms of getting started with Backtrace, really short integration cycles. We get teams up and running in under 5 minutes. Backtrace.io gives you an opportunity to create a free instance. We have a free developer tier that allows you to store up to 25,000 monthly errors, allowing you to get started and start making use of Backtrace. Integration with Unity is performed through the package manager, up and running in less than 5 minutes, and collecting errors from games that you're either using in playtesting, rolling out to your players, et cetera. And then from there, we have packages that grow with the success of your game.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So in closing, let's recap. With the 3 solutions, you've been able to streamline processes across teams. You can help prioritize developer time for game-breaking bugs and automate communication with your player for faster resolution, and to keep players in game before they've made an impact on player churn or revenue. This is clear based on the success of recent launches. And thanks for everyone for your valuable insight. I really appreciate that. Now let's open it up to any questions from the audience. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. It's nice to see you all. So we got a couple of questions. Welcome to everyone in chat. Thanks for listening. I'm just going to hop right into the questions. The first one is, I'm impressed only a team of 3 can support 17 million users. Have the top player issues at Halfbrick changed since implementing this process? What do you guys think?
We see less crash reports coming in, which we put down to the fact that that's all picked up by Backtrace now and goes straight to the developers. Mm-hmm. We usually used to get those pretty often as the bulk of the tickets, but now it's gone on to more gameplay issues that we can actually handle in the moment.
Awesome. Thank you. And I think I have another question for Halfbrick. Give me 1 second. Oh, so how did Halfbrick prioritize issues they were going to address once the tools were onboarded?
Typically, we just pass them on to people like Jade, who were able to then, sorry, not just Jade, but we have a few teams using Backtrace right now. Mm-hmm. And whenever we'd see those tickets come in, we'd try to pass them directly on to the programmers for those teams, rather than the designers or artists or someone else, and then let them kind of take over that aspect of it. Because, a few of us on the customer service side aren't as techy as, the actual games team. So for the sake of us not sending people in circles, we just kind of handed that off to the other members of the team.
Yeah, totally. It definitely helps to not overload your really important resources, such as engineering teams, with those kind of questions. Awesome. Yeah. Eric, did you want to add anything about that?
Oh, yeah. And that was, during the presentation, we actually talked about this. One of the things that we do when we come in is we do an assessment of what are all the issues that come in. And we can take a look at what's the volume and how does it break down into the different areas. And so, for example, we knew that 33% of their volume was related to, to crashes or hangs or things like that. And so we can focus directly on that and be like, how do we automate that and get that, and get the things in place for that. And so then you get that 33% automation or 33% help on that. And then you just work on the next one and next one on down. I think the presentation actually had a good screenshot of kind of one of those reports.
Okay, cool. I have a question in chat from Calvin Fong. May I know if Backtrace has a Japanese version, and is Backtrace needed to operate together with HelpShift?
The Japanese version of Backtrace is in development right now. We're in the middle of localization efforts, and I expect to have that ready in the middle of this summer. In terms of operation together with HelpShift, I think what you've seen today is a great example of how companies can tie the two tools together. Eric and I have been speaking about how we can do some more with our tools. I don't know if we talked a little bit about automation yet, but I'd be happy to discuss some of the ideas that we have as we're looking to bring these two tools closer together.
Yeah, that actually is a great segue into our question, which was what kind of automation is available between Backtrace and HelpShift?
Yep.
Cool.
Jason, I'll take a first stab at this, but I think there's there's definitely some of the things that you and I have talked about. But when someone comes in to report something, there's there's always a set of initial triage that you want to do, and HelpShift will actually help automate all that process. Capture the information about where the what device the user was on, what version, what OS, all of these things, and can actually even ask them questions. It can automatically ask them this or that or things like that. So freeing up the time to get that. So all of that's all just built out of the box with HelpShift. In addition to that, Backtrace is also collecting a lot of information about what was going on, what the player was doing, what crashes they saw, and all of that. So that's so that part is automated. And then what we saw today is we actually saw the joining of that is how can you take the information from HelpShift and then also jump into and match that with what information might be in Backtrace. And the key there is really the identity that is captured, and they're able to do that. And we can actually even automate that to make it super easy, like one click, between those, and you can do that through integrations between the two systems that we have. But pretty much the entire process, the collection of data, the collection of the of the data for the ticket that was created, also the collection of the crash and all of that data, and then being able to merge those, being able to join that together. So Jason, what's kind of, I know you and I have talked about this. Is there, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think in terms of automation, a lot of the benefit that folks get from Backtrace to begin with is the automation of collection of all this information. Just like HelpShift collects some of the device information, Backtrace specializes at going a level deeper to get data that the developers need to help resolve certain issues. In terms of further automation, right, we saw on the agent desktop how the user ID can be shared, right, between HelpShift and Backtrace. You can envision a world for folks who are HelpShift users where you have automation and bots, so that instead of having to go to an agent first, we know that user ID, and you could do a kickoff, a lookup in Backtrace to see if there are any known issues. And if there are, kind of report back, hey, we're aware of this issue, and automate this process of making the end user aware of the fixes even further. Yeah. So that's really what excites me here, is kind of moving a little bit even beyond this, shortening the time to alerting the users, and then doing additional proactive engagement with them later when other things are fixed.
Yeah. Jason, let's go one step further. Let's even automatically file the ticket in Jira. We can have the person report it. We can automatically look at the data that's in Backtrace to report back to the player. But if it's maybe something that isn't being worked on, we could automatically open the ticket in Jira. We have the integration also in Jira, as do you. And so we could kick off the automated process to then open a ticket in Jira for those. And I think there was actually, Catherine had asked the question about their engineering working entirely with Jira. And, both Backtrace and HelpShift have the integrations that you could actually even automate opening the bug reports in Jira. And even just simple bug reports, 9% of all tickets that come in are typically just someone just reporting a bug. And so you automate that, and that's 9% less work that you have to do. So.
Yeah, awesome. I think that, yeah, go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Did you want to add anything else?
Not really, other than to say, yeah, Jira and other places where engineers work, that's the perfect place to be pushing a lot of this data, right? These tools are fantastic, depending on the user persona that's engaging with them. I think Madison and Jade could attest to this. Maybe you might want to say another thing or two around this, but using the HelpShift tool in the customer support scenario, as well as in the QA scenario, and then making sure that the data gets to where the developers are going to engage with it, where they're going to do their research and where they're going to put their fixes. That's, I think, one of the real powers of these types of solutions.
Awesome, perfect. I think I have one more question. Can Backtrace help with hangs and OOM issues?
Great question. Definitely a mobile audience here. So yes, we've been doing a fair amount of continual improvement to our crash reporting libraries on Android and iOS. I don't recall exactly when, but over a number of months ago, support for low memory detection, as well as hang detection on Android and iOS has been rolled out. And there's a lot of interesting features, a lot of data that we collect to help engineers try and isolate where the problems are, especially with these sorts of errors. You don't know what things might be happening in the background, what things might be taking up memory. So we try and expose to folks information about memory allocation for things like low memory errors. And then for hanging crashes, identifying things like which threads in these multi-threaded processes may be hanging for you.
Perfect. I have another question from Jeremy in chat. Is it possible to theme and brand Help Shift to match the game design?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. The whole point of of Help Shift is you want to be able to provide support to the player or to the person in the experience that they are. The worst thing you can do is send them out of your experience to someplace else. You want to keep them in your experience and give them the support in that. And so being able to theme it, have it feel like it is that way, being able to have them stay on the device, meaning if they're on a mobile device, they should stay on that mobile device, not have to go over to a web page or anything. So like here they are to be able to do that. And so all of the technology we have is designed so that it is just part of your application. It's part of your game. It's part of your, your experience. So that can be in-app, and that's across not just mobile devices. Of course, that's across all devices, whether it's a PC with, PC app or even a console or some of these other places where you may have an experience even on a TV. You can keep that experience right there, which is what you want it to be.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. I think that was the last question. So just a reminder for the attendees that we'll follow up with an email. And if you want, there's going to be included some instructions on how you can register for a lunch and learn session with the team. But with that, thank you everyone who came and presented. This was a really helpful and useful presentation. And yeah, have a nice day, everyone.